and welcome to my channel. So I owe you guys a little bit of an apology. When I made my last two videos and I said I'd be back the very next week with more content, that turned out to be a little bit of a lie. Clearly, I did not come right back with more content, and there is a very good reason for that. I saw that my subscriber count was going up, and I didn't want to mess with it until I reached that next milestone. Let me explain. So I'm definitely the kind of creator that people will follow for one video or one type of video, and then I'll make something else and they're like, well, what the fresh hell is this? And they unsubscribe. And I, after about a full year of being stuck in a particular number range of subscribers, was finally about to move on to a different range. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess that up. And it was also kind of a very serendipitous moment for me to be moving on in that way, because in June, at the end of June, it officially marked 2 years of me being monetized on this platform. YouTube has March listed as my official start date, March of 2021, but I got monetized and officially into the YouTube Partner Program and basically made the transition into doing this full time by June of 2021, June 28th, 2021 to be exact. So the subscriber growth happening around the time that it happened was very serendipitous for me. Also, last year in July of 2022, I officially got to 70,000 subscribers. So that would mean that it took me about a year and a half to get to 70,000. And then the next year, I only grew about 10,000 more. So clearly something changed. There was a very big stagnation. And so I wanted to make sure that when I saw that growth happening, that it kept happening and I did not mess it up. And yeah, here we are. We made it and I'm excited. I wanted to take a moment too to talk about what it has been like, or what my biggest lesson from the last 2 years creating content here on YouTube, what my biggest lesson would be, what my biggest takeaway. And for me, it boils down to one specific thesis statement, which is the internet owes me nothing. When I first started, and if you're new here and you had no idea who I was until you saw something recently and decided to subscribe, when I first started 2 years ago, I felt like I was on a rocket ship that was just shooting out of the sky from one reality to another. I sincerely believed every positive email, DM, where people were basically like, you are the second coming of a new way of thinking and presenting Black womanhood on the internet. I believed it all, you guys. Even when I was, I might have responded and been like, oh, no. I was taking it all in. I was locking it all in because in a way, it seemed like I had finally found through YouTube my way of having a legitimate media career. And if you know anything about me, you know that I went to college for it a million years ago, graduated into a recession, was basically also hit with a lot of other really tough life lessons and circumstances. So there's a lot of turnarounds and closed doors. And so I really believed and wanted to believe, like everybody else, that me finally doing this was my key into that new reality. So that was definitely a lot to kind of come down from when I was humbled by the internet because, like I said, my growth kind of halted. I saw that positivity and I received it. And then I also got a lot of the negativity. It was definitely a humbling thing. And ultimately I came to the thesis statement that I stated earlier, which is the internet owes me nothing. I really believed for a long time that I was very, very special. But then I started to look around and realize that my own assumed exclusivity of opinion was in fact a delusion. There were lots of people talking about what I was talking about. They may not have been talking about it here, but they were talking about it elsewhere online. And they were talking about it in ways that were more endearing to audiences. They were talking about it in ways that were easier for people to understand. Maybe they were better at staying on track than I was. And they were also better at something that I've always been terrible at, which is networking. They're reaching out, they're making new bonds and new connections with similar people who have similar minds to them. And ultimately, I wasn't special. I think I had my moment in time for sure. And it was definitely a beautiful summer in the summer of 2021. And I experienced some emotional highs and levels of hope that I had not experienced ever before in my life. The reality is that there are so many brilliant minds and brilliant points of view being birthed into the internet every single day. And if you even get but a moment of time where people say to you, you're doing something wild and new and we've never experienced anything like this before, then that is a blessing in and of itself. I think that there are definitely people who have a big moment and they are able to parlay it into lots of different things and big realities. I think about Tabitha Brown, for example. She had a big summer of 2020, I believe, when we were all locked in the house and afraid of the world around us. Her very calming and sweet hello there, and all of her recipes and ways of interacting with her family and with her hair and with her audience. It was a moment that introduced us to a very, very powerful and extraordinary individual. And she's been able to take that moment and propel it into quite a new reality for herself. But what I want to say is that I think Tabitha, like a lot of people who do really, really well in social media and they're able to stretch their moment from just a mere moment to a lifetime of moments, she is a good vibes creator. She puts out joy into the world. And I think one thing that was very interesting about my journey was that I was really dealing with some tough stuff. And so people deal with tough stuff. They do. But I think that tough stuff has one place, but joy goes everywhere. And so when I looked at things that way, when I looked at how much better good vibes creators do, when I looked at how much more accessible they are, when I looked at how much more successful, I really looked at my journey and I said, okay, the stagnation makes sense. And once again, I was just sort of grateful that I got any time at all. And so 2 years into this thing, that's really the summation or the summary that I come to. It was wonderful to be considered a big thing. And I hope that everybody in their life at some point, if they so desire that kind of attention, gets their moment in that way where people say, hey, who is this? What are they doing? This is amazing. You're amazing. But at the end of the day, true greatness will reveal itself. And if you're not truly, truly great, you will experience stagnation. You will experience being knocked off the pedestal. You will experience being humbled. And it's all for your good. But it can be a little bit confusing and a little bit painful and a little bit frustrating when you're going through it. And so that's where I stand 2 years into this thing. I have enjoyed my time on social media, but it has also been a very humbling time and a very character building time. And I have officially transformed from being a person who believed and was in love with the idea of my own hype to being a person who knows that the internet owes me nothing, that there are people who are doing amazing things every day, and true greatness will reveal itself in time. And for the rest of us, we are just presented with opportunities to grow. And for me, ultimately, that's what my social media journey is about. How much can I grow? And I don't think I'm done growing yet. So I'm still here. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you. And happy anniversary to me and happy anniversary to us. All right, let's move on. Everybody right now is talking about what happened with Keke Palmer and her boyfriend, or now ex-boyfriend, I believe. I'm not sure. They haven't made an official statement, but he has removed her from all of his social media, and they don't follow each other on socials anymore. And usually that means the relationship is over. But a very public disagreement played out between the two of them the other day via social media. And this conversation is being talked about everywhere. And I wanted to add my 2 cents to it because it plays into something that I've been kind of talking about consistently, whether here or over on my Patreon for the past couple months, which is the inevitable fallout that'll happen when you take your private issues, whether it's with someone, whether it's with yourself, and you put them on a public platform without considering the fallout first. You guys might remember that a couple videos ago, I talked about how I wish there was a prompt before we went to tweet, before we went to post a TikTok, before we went to write a caption on a picture on Instagram, before you upload a video on YouTube. I wish there was a prompt, some kind of artificial intelligence to scan your content and to say, hey, we found some places that might result in you having some confrontation online. We found some issues here. Do you want to pause before you post and review these situations and perhaps rewrite them or reword them? Because once it's out there, you can't take it back. And I've said this before because I really, really believe it, because I know what it's like to put something out there and oops, there it is. And you can take it down, you can delete it, but it's been heard, it's been said. People now know this about you. They now think this about you. There's no way to undo that moment. And social media makes it very popular for us to let's be ourselves. Let's put our energy out there. I am who I am. This is my page. But once you enter your thoughts into the public collective via your Twitter page, your Instagram page, your TikTok page, your YouTube page, it goes from belonging to you to belonging to everyone, which is why it is so important to pause, to reflect, to think before you post, and especially why it's so important to refrain from bringing your private matters, your private disagreements, your private misunderstandings to public platforms, especially when you're dealing with public figures. I've also talked a little bit about how I dislike call-out culture, how I prefer the process of calling someone in when you can, because sometimes somebody had done something and there's a reason why they have been separated from the main group, right? And we know that that person is never going to do the work that is needed to bring them back into fellowship with everyone else. However, I do think that the internet is a place where if a mistake is viewed, if someone makes a mistake, if they say the wrong thing, if they do something, and a lot of times it's just ignorance. They did not know that that was hurtful. They did not maybe hear themselves. They didn't pause before they posted, right? A lot of times what the internet will do is they will say, oh, well, get this person out of here. Get them out of here. We don't want, and they will attack the comment section. They will create reaction videos. They'll create whole think pieces, and the general summation and a lot of those pieces of content is we want this person gone. We don't just want an apology, because apologies are never really good enough. There's always somebody that's not satisfied, right? If we're honest. And we say we want accountability, but what we really want is them out of our sight. You pissed us off, get out. And so to me, that's call out culture. When someone does something wrong, they make a mistake, they do whatever, and somebody else takes the time to say, hey, look at this person over here and the wrong that they're doing. And they do it publicly. I don't like that. I think it's tacky. And when it happens on social media specifically, it becomes even tackier because people have eyes now on this person that may not have been thinking about them like that before. People have eyes on this issue that maybe should not be involved in it. In fact, initially, when all the information came out about Colleen Ballinger, I at first was really turned off when it came to how she was being called out. I was like, really? All these YouTube videos about it though? All these people digging up all this old stuff? Really? Now, I do want to say this. I was not aware at that time of the depths of her deviance. And when I say the depths of her deviance, I'm talking about the fact that a lot of the things that she had done were not, that she had not stopped. They were still continuing. She was claiming that she'd taken accountability and she turned herself around, but she really hadn't. And I think sometimes it takes the shock of a public calling out for somebody to stop really negative behavior. So I'm kind of on the fence then about it. I don't like it. I wish it didn't happen. I think it's tacky. But at the same time, I do think that when a public calling out happens, there is like a shock. There is like, okay, this person cannot resume business as usual. Something has to change. And I think that's what happened here in the situation with Keke and her man. I don't think that the public calling out of Keke that he did, and by the way, if you don't know, I don't know how you would not know, but it feels weird for me to keep talking about it without giving a little bit of backstory, so I will. But Keke Palmer, she went to a Usher concert in Las Vegas, and somebody posted her at the concert on social media. She was wearing this outfit, and she looked amazing, especially as someone who just gave birth a couple months ago, and she danced, and she was performing with Usher. He gave her the mic, and she sang a little song. And if you've been to the Usher concert, then you know it is a very smooth, it is a very sexual experience. It is a very fun experience. And normally when you have celebrity women that go, Usher will serenade them. He'll spend extra time at the table. Even if they're not celebrities, he'll bring people up on the stage. That's his vibe. He's Usher. So she posts this video, or somebody posts this video of her at the concert. She's getting serenaded. He's dancing with her. She's wearing this outfit. And I will admit, visually, it was a lot to take in. After a couple of days of just being pissed at her boyfriend for what he did, which was call her out for wearing the outfit and claim that she didn't need to have it on because she's a mother. After a couple of days of just being pissed at him for what he did, I did go ahead and kind of think about the situation from his side a little bit. You're dealing with a man who's watching his woman out in public, and she is, wearing something kind of scandalous and sexy and fun and rubbing up against another man. And even though it is a performance and it's just a concert and she loves you, I could see how somebody might be like, ooh, I wish that wasn't happening right now. It reminded me of, or actually didn't remind me, but social media brought it to my attention that a couple months ago, Chance the Rapper was at like Carnival somewhere, and he was pictured doing this with a dancer at Carnival, and people were like, oh no, he shouldn't do that. That's wrong, whatever, right? So I do think that when you do have a partner and they're in the public world and you see them doing something that is slightly sexual or performative with someone else, I do think that you might feel a little sting, especially if you're a man and you're as bent on being possessive and having an inflated ego the way that her ex-boyfriend seems to be. His calling her out wasn't the worst of it. It wasn't the worst of his crimes. The worst of his crimes came when he followed up that calling out with, she's a wife and a mother, I'm a man, I'm the head of the household. Just a lot of lies. Because anyone who knows that situation or knows of that situation, they know that those two are not married. They know that he can't be head of the household because Keke Palmer makes all the money. Now, if he's talking about in maybe an antiquated, archaic, biblical sense, him being the man, he's the head of the household, he's still not the head of the household because he was not her husband. So when he doubled down with that, I think that that brought even more trouble to the situation. And ultimately, it just became really, really nasty and really sloppy, very, very quick. And in my opinion, it escalated way too much because of the fact that he bought this private thing public. If you're offended by this, send her a text. If you're offended by this, wait till she gets home and have a talk with her about how she presents herself, maybe when she's in public. I do believe that you have a right to your feelings. I also believe that your delivery and the way that you express your feelings can take a situation from being slightly disappointing and upsetting to being a catastrophic thing that plays out in front of everyone. I want to say when it comes to Keke Palmer, she, in my opinion, has always had the hand of favor over her life and over her career. Now, I don't know her specifically, but I do know what she shared about herself. And I remember she did an interview last year where she talked about how she showed up for her first audition and she'd never done a movie or anything before. And they were like, hey, we'll give you the job. She talked about how she moved out to LA as a kid and someone was like, you know what? I'm a producer and a writer. I want to produce and write something with you. She has been in the industry forever and we had never heard about her in any celebrity beef. I mean, there was a little bit of rumblings about some confrontation that had between her and Trey Songz. But that is understandable given his long history of not treating women very nicely. But outside of that, there really hasn't been any confrontation that we can link back to Keke. She's not a person who stayed in the tabloids. She's not a person. Listen, before she got into this relationship, I had no idea if anybody else she'd ever even dated. She's done an incredible job at keeping her private life out of the public sphere. And let's also for a minute talk about the very powerful act of a woman reclaiming her body in any way after giving birth. That is one of the things that I have been really paying attention to, especially given how much I had wanted to be a mom and give birth and do all that stuff. One thing that made me feel kind of at peace with not being able to do that is the fact that sometimes you never get your body back. Your babies can be in college and you still have separated abdomen. You still have hip and joint and groin issues. You still have issues with how you use the bathroom. You still have, we don't pay enough attention to the fact that when women give birth and they become mothers, it is an act of sacrifice for a lot of them. And yes, for every woman that bounces back and goes and runs 10 miles the next day, there are people who really, really never recover and are never, ever again who they were before the baby. And what I think is so great about Keke is she is celebrating that because she's one of the lucky ones who came out, in her opinion, better than she was before she had the baby. Childbirth can be such a powerful and transformative thing. And when a woman reclaims her body or takes the opportunity to have joy in her body after it happens, that's a very powerful thing. And that was one thing I hated about this, was that her moment of dancing around and showing off her new mama body should have been something that was a sweet memory for her. But because she is this very possessive and cave-minded individual as a partner, that's not what happened. And if you don't think that he's possessive with the mind of a caveman, then you may not have known about his other tweets that have since resurfaced, which I've talked with people a lot about this. The concept of cleaning up your own space before you allow bigger eyes to look at it, if you will. And we see this consistently, right? Where someone will have an interesting history of commenting on certain things. And once they get into the limelight in any way, they won't erase that history. We saw it with Marshall and his tweets, right? We see it with Keke's ex and his tweets. And the things that have been dug up, the things that have been brought to the surface have been very, very disappointing. He had a series of tweets that resurfaced with him defending the arrest and treatment of Alton Sterling, who was a Black man who died by the effects of police brutality in the summer of 2016, which I think everybody can agree is just in really, really poor taste and very, very disconnected from the soul of that issue. Another thing he was connected to on Twitter that really, really caused me to raise my eyebrow is somebody tweeted about Tracee Ellis Ross. Tracee had posted a picture of her body on Instagram, and I don't know if she meant it to be public or if she meant it to be something private, and I don't know how it got out, but she posted a photo of herself holding her chest, so her breasts, and standing in front of a mirror. And Keke's ex-boyfriend had liked a tweet calling Tracee, in basically so many words, a 50-year-old female loser because she would dare show off her body and present herself to social media after she has officially dried up as a human being. When I read this, my eyes honestly got watery because I think for so many of us, whether you're single, married, have kids, don't have kids, whatever, Tracee Ellis Ross is such a inspiration. And to see somebody boil her entire worth down to nothing because, and I just got this from reading the replies on that tweet, she is no one's mother and no one's wife and still dares to show up in her own body in sexually suggestive poses, even though this picture wasn't even sexually suggestive, because she still dares to say, hey, I have a body and this is what it looks like. She should know that no one wants to see that anymore. She is, after all, over the age of 30. Give me a break. It's crazy to me that no matter how much we seem to move forward as a society when it comes to age and, age ain't nothing but a number and, get out there and get yours, women can do whatever. No matter how many times we say this, we still consistently go back to these very archaic ways of thinking, that a woman's only value is in motherhood and in wifehood, that once someone gives birth, the ability that they have to enjoy their body and to show their body off goes away completely, and they need to remain a secret and a mystery to them, even to themselves. If someone dares to show up and have pride in who they are as a woman, separate from their identity as a mother or a wife, that person should be called out and made fun of in a public place. The whole situation was very sad from Keke, a person who has been very unproblematic and also is going through a bit of a professional renaissance right now, calling this era her big boss era. She's on almost every talk show and podcast. She just launched her own podcast. And she had also just posted a couple of days ago, I love my man. But we all know, any of us out there who have ever put somebody's name in the phone and finally put them under their real name instead of an emoji, any of us out there who have finally told our friends about someone, we all know what happens after you do that, right? Which is that the guy usually messes up and embarrasses you. So for Keke to be having this moment in her life and then to have this happen, it was embarrassing to watch. It was disappointing. And I just have to come back to my original statement, which is that in this era of the internet, where we've made it so easy to take our grievances to Main Street, whether it's deservedly so, as in we are reporting on the consistent and devious actions of a child predator with a ukulele, or it is undeservedly so. I do think, though, that sometimes call-outs can be positive, because I think without maybe the outside world being drawn in, without other people's opinions kind of shining on a situation, things that don't need to exist the way they're existing, relationships that should not be together, I think that they would remain untouched. And so whether he knew it or not, by calling her out in this way, Darius was contributing to Keke's liberation. And I want to also say this because I filmed this before fully viewing Keke's response to the situation. And the longer I stay on social media, the more I am just always paying attention to these phenomena that happen to people, people making mistakes, people's redemption arcs, how people respond to mess when their name is in mess, whether it's because they did something or somebody pulled them into something. And there is a concept that I have come up with outside of my concept of the social media ecosystem, which was just award-winning, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. But that's one of my ideas. The second idea that I have is this concept of contributing to control. So basically, you're in something, you're in some mess. People are talking about you. They've got your name on their lips, and they're looking to see how you're going to respond to the situation. And now you can do nothing. You can have no response. You can be silent. That's fine. You can get online and make a bunch of really heartfelt and sad memes to sad songs. You know, if you're going through a breakup like presumably Keke is, we don't know. I don't know, at least. I'm just assuming. Or you can do what she's doing, which is really, really leaning into her narrative as an individual without considering what he might have or might not have brought to the situation at all, and really, really leaning into the narrative of her being the person that we as an audience know, separate from her identity with this man. She is posting herself dancing. The lyrics of this song, I believe she's dancing to, have to deal with, you know, don't worry about what's going on with me or something like that. She is posting herself holding her son and leaning into her identity as a mother and talking about how much motherhood has empowered her. And she is steady posting her appearances on whatever podcast. She is keeping the Keke train rolling. She's contributing to control the narrative in a way that it continues to support the positive image that we as an audience have of her outside of whatever negativity her current boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, father of her child might have attempted to put on her image and on her legacy. I think it's very, very powerful. And it's something that not a lot of people would be able to do because, listen, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Could she be in tears? Maybe. Could she feel down about this? Possibly. But the way that she contributes to control the narrative, you would never know. And I think that that is definite big boss energy. And I think that that is, you know, that's Keke Palmer. So, yeah, I just wanted to make note of that. This is very painful to watch, but I ultimately believe she will be better for this. And he, hopefully, after he finishes doubling down on everything and whatever else he's going to do, will take in a little bit of this criticism that people are giving him. And will realize that he was wrong in this situation. And should he have the opportunity to be in another relationship in his life, or, I don't know, should God smile on him and he be able to reconcile with Keke, I hope he doesn't take that same possessive, insecure attitude to Main Street when he perceives his partner has embarrassed him in some way. So yes, publicly calling out someone is not my favorite thing, but there are times that it is needed. And ultimately, it can bring things into alignment if that is what must be so. So I originally had the idea that this video would be 2 different videos, but I said, let me go ahead and smoosh it into one because I don't want to keep them there all day. If you stayed all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much. And if you've been here since the beginning of my YouTube journey, I also appreciate you. And as always, thank you for watching.